Where are you? Where are you? There you are. Well done. Really well done. Now, stop looking that way, Bill. You know, in the spoken word, in the first evening, I already mentioned the piece I did about my mother. In the first evening, and then a piece about my father in the second evening, called In My Father's House. And there was a big presentation here in the frame, my father's football picture from 1929, standing there in one of the old-fashioned get-ups, and called The Player, and then accompanied by a poem, and a poem that I had written about my mother on display, and I read this piece about my father and my mother. And then the third year, and people nodded, and they were very, very courteous. They nodded and clapped, applauded politely. And then the next year, I decided I was going to do something considerably different, and I began to look at all the Far Eastern boys and girls we had on our team. And we had quite a few. And they're wonderful. They're smart as whips. And they've got pretty darn good sense of humor, especially when, I think they're pretty good at laughing at themselves too. And so when I did this piece on the Asian names, with a lot of rhyming twists and turns, it got quite a response. And I have gotten very few standing ovations in my life. But one of them was following that presentation. Do you remember that? You guys? Yes. Well, anyway, last year I did a couple of poems. If I remember correctly, one was about Selena Lefty, and the last I can remember, I left her lying on her tufty, swimming her way off into space. And then another poem about the fly guy, you all know who that is, wondering why his dolphin kick is moot and his tired arms don't give a hoot. And so this year, rather than another poem, I thought I'd go back to the wonderful world of Asian names and rhymes revisited. And because I throw in a little Shakespeare here, there's a prelude. And this is the prelude. Maybe we can blame it all on Shakespeare, or his contemporary here, the old coach, this name business, I mean. We all remember that lyrical tale of the star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, and the difficulties they encounter with their warring families, the Montagues and the Capulets. And who can forget that moment when Romeo and Juliet meet at a masked ball, where they fall in love at first sight? Well, at least Romeo does. A short time later, Act 2 actually, they begin to contemplate their future together, the major obstacle to which, of course, is the enmity which each family feels for the other. In an effort to diffuse Romeo's doubts and fears of this seemingly immovable obstacle to their love for each other, Juliet poses a thought, albeit a rather enigmatic one. If I can get it out, what's in a name, she says. That which we call a rose by any other name would surely smell as sweet. Well, Juliet was right about the sweet part, particularly and especially so, as that sweetness pertains to the names of those I chose to mention here tonight. It's only right and sincere to call them sweet. So let these mentions of my intentions tickle your fancy. Let the sounds dribble down chin and chin. and cheek. As I wend my way along this stay of rhyme and reason, however you may wish to vault it toward the challenge to untangle all the angles of this wrangle facing me tonight. So what does this funny foolishness have to do with you and me? The old coach, whose mind fills with rhymes whenever he encounters names like Wang and Yang and Yi, not to mention two kinds of Li, and Cho and Guo and Chu and Shu and even Kim and Min. But I am remiss. I should have brought to your attention this, or at the very least mentioned Sun, which alas rhymes with no one, except Shan, a name that at first glance might pass for Asian. But no, Sabrina's not a part of this equation. Now, in the interest of time and the pursuit of rhyme, let's begin this matter of outrageous pitter-patter with a bang, and consider the curious case of Yang and Miss Wang. Now all this mission-mash and how to tell who is who and who is whom and who is in the room began years ago with a cool pool dude named Michael Wang, or so we thought. It took a while to be taught that Wang was not only wrong, but Wong. Literally, figuratively, linguistically, and unmitigatingly. So if that's the case, picture the pretty face of Stephanie Yang and her dear little sister swimmer and pianist, Serena Wang. Since we all know now that Wang is wrong, shouldn't Serena be Serena Wong and Stephanie be Stephanie Yong? Poor little Stephanie. She might as well be Bethany for all the good that would do. But it's her identity I would discuss with you. Wasn't it Confucius, with his thoughts of gender we all remember as yin and yang, that put apart maid and man? If indeed that's the case, then I would embrace for your consideration a proclamation proposing the emancipation of Stephanie Yang. Shouldn't common sense prevail? Around this town, at least, shouldn't we address her as Senorita Yin rather than Senor Yang? And thus legalize, gender-wise, what Confucius had in mind. Or maybe we should give her a title. How about Miss Merry Christmas? Or something like that. Maybe Miss December. Or better yet, Miss Agenda. Now, beyond these affectations I've managed to string out here, seemingly year after year, there remains another perplexion, which begs the question, where are all the colonists on our team? The Smiths and Jones, I mean. Alas, it seems there's not a single one of those. They've been preempted, as the saying goes, by an Asian invasion, full of Chos and Guos, and Yangs and Wangs and even Wongs, if you prefer. I may need a lawyer in retention here. A few years ago, we even had a boy named Fong. Currently, we have a boy named Chu, and another guy whose name rings true, a double rhymer, Ryu Shu. As in shoe fly pie, which only Annette remembers why. It was in a song lyric long ago with a dish called apple pan dowdy, which rhymes with howdy, and another way of saying hi to the fly guy. Anthony Kim, the Poseidon of swim, a god worthy of capital He and capital Him. And of course there's his friend, that sentimental gentleman named Min. By the way, It's a good thing rain is min and not yin, because then he'd suffer the same as Stephanie's name, misgendered name. And why shouldn't how, which rhymes with a barking dog, somehow, bow wow, get it? But which ends in OU be pronounced who, as in what an owl would hoot, or to boot, even hoe, as in that garden implement we know. Midst all this agitation is someone whose cogitation concerns whether she is or whether she ain't that Asian. She knows who she is. But when you meet her mother, a lovely lady named Yi Yang, well, you can see where all the difficulty began. These curious reversals defy explication. Neither Yi nor Ye in their usual place, and Wang and Yang still an unsolved case. Well, Wang or Wong or Yi or Ye, either way, the rest is just a toss-up, I would guess. But I digress. Let's be positive. Let's give a pat on the back to Jordan Lee, whose name sounds like what we see, a double E, as opposed to Eric L.I. Lee, whose mixed up I, masquerading as an E, after succumbing to linguistic gravity, has sunk from sight into a semantic concavity. Pity we don't have a motto in our midst to rhyme with, say, ventriloquist. Now here's a thought I forgot. We do have a motto on our list, an official sawbones saxophonist. Last year we had a girl. Everybody's trying to get into the act. That's all, Fred, you're on next. Well, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was going to say that last year we had a member you might remember. If I can remember myself. You might remember on the team named Eileen Kawamoto, which rhymes with that Wonderland dog named Toto, and yes, that other guy we know, Hashimoto. Which, speaking of wonders, and my friend Hashi, inexplicably brings me to Flashy and Dashy, the Andrews, Chen, and Chu. One is all flash, his nickname. One is all flash and a mathematical wizard gone wild. The other, a dashing flower child. A remand which only his mother would understand, since I used to call her Lotus Blossom in her youth when she was my student, and a flower nymph, and that's the truth. Will I ever master the ins and outs of Asian enunciation, I wonder? Will DNA be the only way to unravel what is right and what is wrong, and who is Wang and who is Wong, and whether Cho could be Chow or Min Main, which rhymes with his other name, in which case we could all go out to dinner and order chow mein. Make your reservations now, and feel free to invite Jason who or ho or how. In any guise, you can find him in lane 3 now. Kids will understand. Fortunately for you, I'm getting to the end of this. Well, that brings me to the end of this contemplation. But allow me one final explanation. a last reference, if you will, to an orange sneakers resurrection of a guy gone in another direction, he's away at college. But a boy loyal to the team, a friend to all of us, I mean. I speak of none other than Justin Fan. There's no quandary here, my friends, only simplicity, felicity, and ease. A name that doesn't play around on some trapeze. Methinks the salvation of all of this is pure, a name that's cool, for sure. A name that resonates with man, a name at last I can understand. No charade, masquerading as deception, just a pure and simple, unmitigated perception. F-A-N, Fan. After all this saying, I must confess I'm smitten with anything Asian that sounds like it's written. Thank you very much.